For many, the images of famine coming out of the Horn of Africa are disturbing. For Linda Bear, those images trigger memories.
Seeing a 7-year-old lie absolutely still in bed and look like a 2-year-old is heartbreaking.
Bear is a nutrition specialist with UNICEF, a United Nations children's charity and advocacy group.
We actually respond in areas of nutrition, in water sanitation, child protection, and education.
In East Africa, drought and rising food costs have left millions of Kenyans, Ethiopians, and Somalians on the brink of starvation.
Because these communities are pastoral largely and totally reliant for their livelihoods on their animals, on the milk that their animals produce and the meat from their animals. And when their animals start dying, it starts really affecting how households cope. Huge amounts of the population live in urban hubs. And so those households live on less than $1 a day. And when the cost for food doubles, or what they need to eat and survive doubles, it really affects how they cope.
And while the Horn as a whole is facing drought, in July, Somalia became the focus after the UN declared famine in southern and central parts of the country. And that's why thousands are walking from Somalia to the Dadaab refugee camp in northeastern Kenya, where Bear has been working.
Dadaab is along the border of Somalia, just probably about 80 kilometers in from that border inside Kenya. It's in a very arid area, so it's desert. You fly into Dadaab and it's clusters of camps that have been set up to respond to the refugee situation.
Originally a refugee camp for people fleeing civil war in Somalia in the 90s, Dadaab, meant to house tens of thousands, now holds close to 400,000 Somali refugees.
Particularly since April and May, there's been a stream of people, between 800 and 1,000 people per day arriving at the camps with severe need. So you'll see people having come upwards of 25 days walk and arriving in very desperate situations.
But according to Ahmad Hussain, the images coming out of Dadaab don't paint the whole picture. He's the national president of the Canadian Somali Congress, an advocacy group for Canadians of Somali heritage.
Everyone was talking about Dadaab. Well, Dadaab is not Somalia. Dadaab is deep inside Kenya, and it really doesn't reflect the true reality and the horror of the situation. We had friends of the organization who physically are inside Somalia in the epicenter of the famine.
Northern Somalia is stable and was therefore able to prepare and access aid. In the south, however, political instability and the terrorist group Al-Shabaab have banned foreign media and kept aid and aid workers from helping the most vulnerable.
What Al-Shabaab is doing is they're committing war crimes by preventing not only food aid from coming in, they're preventing people from leaving to try to get food and shelter and medicine.
And while political instability plays a role in the crisis, the media focus on lawlessness and terrorism, he says, leaves many stories of hope in Somalia untold.
Somalis are not genetically predisposed to anarchy and violence. There are regions in Somalia where there is peace, good governance, and prosperity.
Even in Dadaab, Hassan says, refugees are helping those now fleeing the famine.
The older, more established refugees in the camp shared their rations. They were able to assist them with building tents and homes and helping them with medicine. There are women in Dadaab who've adopted stray children who've just kind of made it to Dadaab. So people are resilient, they're creative, they help each other.
Though they're a world away, the diaspora are also doing what they can.
The Canadian Somali community has really stepped up. They have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars, raised even more from other communities, but also they've raised a lot of awareness about this.
Canadians, Hussain says, have also been more than generous.
Canada as a whole, as a country, has punched above its weight in terms of its contribution. The Canadian government has put $72.5 million towards this famine, and that is way more per capita than other countries.
Across Canada, people of faith are standing up for the Horn. Two organizations helping them do that are Urdo and Crossroads Missions. Founded in the 1980s, both Urdo and Crossroads Missions were there during the Ethiopian famine. More than 20 years later, they've returned to the Horn to assist in the relief effort.
I can't imagine what it would be like to have to look at your child and say, I don't have. We have to go somewhere, we have to walk somewhere. I just can't. We've sold everything we've got and we still don't have enough. And forces that are larger than me and larger than my community and larger than my region have created this environment, and we have to go.
David Adcock is CEO of URDO, the Emergency Relief and Overseas Development arm of the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, an organization that includes more than 1,100 churches across the country.
We've actually delivered food to 6,000 families. Because our aid is a little under the radar and working through local organizations in communities, our food has already got through. So the maize and the beans and oil and salt and split peas, actually that kind of high protein combination is actually getting right through, and the first month has already been delivered. And so we're excited about that.
But it doesn't end there. Even after the media attention has shifted elsewhere, URDO, he says, will be there for the long haul.
So we'll continue to do that and hope to actually invest more. You'll see URDO do more and more. We will continue our response. When somebody's hungry today, we need to feed people today, and we need to do for people. But our next step, very quickly, after doing for people, is to do with people and to engage communities and support them in their own aspirations to build a future for their children.
At Crossroads Missions, Director of Missions Dave Shelley says the ministry is targeting families outside of Dadaab.
There's so many more within Kenya and Ethiopia and other places that need help as well. We're trying to find the pockets of people that are being kind of left behind because they're not in that large refugee camp.
But for those who do choose to make the trek, Shelley says they're doing what they can to help them reach their final destination.
We're targeting actually the people escaping from Somalia. So they're on the road, they're getting a small food handout while they travel, they're escaping from Mogadishu into Ethiopia or across the border into Kenya. So it's really helping them make that journey.
In some areas, the food they're distributing is coming from an unlikely place, he says, one that gives him hope, even amidst the suffering.
That's one of the good news stories that we have is a lot of our viewers have invested in Uganda, into these families that have left the IDP camp, gone back to their village with basically nothing, starting from scratch again. And we've helped them with plowing their land and giving them seeds and tools and things. And now, over the last few years, some of these farmers have become, many of them, self-sustaining. And what we've been able to do is to go in and buy maize and beans from them and transport it into Kenya to help with the food crisis. So that's one of the great things that has happened, is we've got Ugandans feeding Somalians and Kenyans and Ethiopians, and that's a wonderful, wonderful story.
For many of the people in the Horn of Africa, the story isn't over yet. Though the media coverage has started to die down, thousands continue to flood into refugee camps, desperate for food and water.
So each person, each organization, each community has a responsibility. I think if each one of us did something, I think it would be okay.
I don't buy the argument that, I don't have to do anything because it's hopeless and it's all bad, and it's not good enough to say, well, I don't know where my money is going. Well, you can easily find out. The lives of those children are equal to the lives of our own children here in Canada.
Mother Teresa once said, it's something that's kind of stayed with me forever, that we meet Jesus sometimes in his most distressing form. And that's Jesus in Somalia, and Jesus is in northern Kenya, and Jesus is in Ethiopia, and we have an opportunity to respond. I think we should.
Until this Friday, September 16th, the Government of Canada has agreed to match every donation given to the drought relief dollar for dollar. To find out how you can help, visit 100huntley.com. In Toronto, Ontario, Bridget Entry, 100 Huntley Street.